Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a fascinating concept we like to call portals, not parcels, specifically looking at the wild land of Northern California. Seriously, imagine this for a second. What if buying a piece of land meant you were actually acquiring 1,000 years of legend, completely for free? Okay, let's dive into this. Usually, real estate is all about, acreage, soil types, zoning codes, the boring stuff. But there's this wildly bizarre premise drawn from the rugged terrain of Northern California, and it goes like this. You aren't just looking at acreage, you're looking at a portal. When you look at parcels in this specific region, you're literally peering into the absolute unknown. It's this incredible place where the veil between documented gritty history and outright myths is practically paper thin. So to really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the striking duality of two neighboring but profoundly different counties. On one hand, we've got Modoc County. This is a landscape completely defined by pure grit, blood-stained lava tubes, and some incredibly intense military history. But then, you just cross the border into Siskiyou County, and the entire atmosphere shifts. Suddenly, it's all mystery, whispered myths of high-tech underground cities, and totally unexplainable phenomena. Well, let's start with the hard, historical reality of Modocs. 55 versus 1,000, and no, that is absolutely not a typo. This brings us to what has to be one of the most incredible David versus Goliath military standoffs in all of American history, the Modoc War of 1872 to 1873. Picture this. On one side, you have a massive, fully equipped force of over 1,000 United States Army soldiers, and on the other, just 55 Modoc warriors. This small, just fiercely determined group was led by Cantripos, who is famously known as Captain Jack. And they staged an unbelievable resistance. I mean, they held off that massive U.S. Army for months. Now, technically speaking, you might be wondering, how on earth is that even possible? Well, the answer actually lies in their secret weapon, which was the real estate itself. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. They took refuge in what we now call Captain Jack's stronghold. The terrain out there is an absolute nightmare for a conventional army. We're talking about a massive, labyrinth-like network of twisting lava tubes and hidden caves. The army brought in heavy mountain howitzers, totally expecting to just blast their way to a quick victory. But the rugged, subterranean nature of this natural lava fortress rendered that artillery completely useless. Literally, the land protected them. The resulting standoff was, quite frankly, devastating. The Modoc War ended up becoming the costliest Indian war ever fought by the United States on a per capita basis. It also holds a pretty grim historical record. It is the only war where a U.S. General Canby, actually lost his life. So when someone buys land in Modoc County today, they really aren't just getting a patch of vacant dirt. They are stepping onto the exact site of a legendary resistance. You are walking on some profound history. Okay, now let's pivot sharply from that gritty tactical reality of Modoc County and move over to the downright fantastical mysteries of neighboring Siskiyou County, because looming over every single parcel of land out here is Mount Shasta. And guys, this isn't just some picturesque mountain for a postcard. It is a peak that has completely baffled researchers and drawn truth seekers for well over a century. If Modoc is hard history, Mount Shasta is just pure myth. Probably the most captivating of these myths, which were heavily popularized in those old 1930s weird history publications, is the legend of the Lemurians. So local lore claims that these beings are survivors of a sunken continent who took refuge deep inside Mount Shasta, and not just in some cave, but in a high-tech subterranean city called Telos. I know, it sounds exactly like a vintage sci-fi novel, but this legend is a massive, massive part of the region's cultural identity. And this lore constantly bleeds into some real-world investigative intrigue. Take the bizarre story of J.C. Brown, a British prospector. Back in 1904, he claimed he found an 11-mile tunnel bored straight into the mountain. He said it was filled with gold, mysterious hieroglyphics, and, get this, 10-foot-tall skeletons. Yeah. Fast forward 30 years to 1934, Brown actually organizes a full expedition to finally prove his claims. But just days before departure, he vanishes, completely without a trace. It really leaves you wondering if the landscape simply swallowed its own secrets. But the mystery isn't just confined to prospectors from the 1930s either. Modern-day locals and hikers are continually reporting unexplainable phenomena out there right now. Visually, you've got constant reports of strange lights just dancing over the peak. And atmospherically, Mount Shasta is famous for these massive lenticular clouds. They are these bizarre, saucer-shaped formations that, frankly, look suspiciously like hovering craft, just hiding in plain sight. So, the crucial point is, what does any of this actually mean when we're talking about real estate? Well, think about it. We live in a world that is becoming increasingly mapped, tracked, and honestly sterilized. You can literally pull out your phone right now and get a street view of almost anywhere on Earth. In a landscape like that, true mystery has become a premium asset. It's incredibly rare. And rarity? Rarity has undeniable value. This brings us to what we call the story premium. Whether you're looking to build an off-grid cabin or some private retreat, the deep mythos of this land actually becomes a massive part of its tangible value. First, it creates this intense cultural magnetism. These legends ensure the area never just becomes some forgotten backwater. It's always going to draw a steady stream of researchers and adventurers. Plus, it offers an incredible heritage connection. You aren't just an owner anymore. You become a steward of a landscape that literally witnessed the closing of the American West. Talk about the ultimate conversation starter, right? Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question. Would you rather just own a standard run-of-the-mill suburban lot or become the steward of a legend? Imagine waking up in the shadow of Lemurian myths or standing on a rocky ridge that once echoed with the fierce resistance of the Modoc War. It just completely reframes what property can be. Thanks so much for exploring this with me on today's Explainer. I really hope it sparked your curiosity to look a little closer at the incredible stories hiding right beneath the dirt we walk on every single day.